My husband's first love has returned to the country. She stood before me with an air of arrogance, saying, "You're pathetic. Your husband doesn't love you at all. I am his true love." True love. I almost laughed out loud upon hearing this, continuing to flip through the contract without even bothering to give her, this love-obsessed fool, a single glance. In this relationship, only she was kept in the dark, foolish and pitiful. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. My husband's first love has returned to the country, and the first thing she did was come to the company to find my husband. Right in front of me, she kissed Larry, like a delicate red rose. She loudly declared, "I'm back." I closed the data file and watched her cling to Larry like a koala, saying expressionlessly, "Well then, Mr. Larry, I'll report to you about the work tonight, after I finished meeting with the client." There was an uninvited guest sitting in the office. Freda looked me up and down with great interest and said arrogantly, "I know yours is a marriage of convenience. How pathetic. Larry doesn't love you at all." I looked at her with a faint smile. "Not as pathetic as you. Watching the man you love become someone else's husband." Freda paused, then glared at me angrily. "You'll get divorced sooner or later." She stormed out, slamming the door angrily. While I smiled and brought the cup to my lips, as everyone knows, my marriage to Larry is a business alliance. He doesn't love me, but I couldn't care less, because I don't love him either. In fact, I'm even looking forward to Larry divorcing me, because our prenuptial agreement states that the party who files for divorce must leave with nothing. He left with nothing, and I just happened to inherit the empire that both of us had worked together to build. The hands of the clock gradually approached 12. Larry had not returned. I calmly removed my makeup and went to rest, without making a single phone call to him the entire time. When I woke up, Larry was already eating in the dining room. After a quick wash, I went to report to him the unfinished data from yesterday. He looked up at me, his dark eyes reflecting my image. "Aren't you curious about where I went yesterday?" I shook my head. "That's your freedom. I'm more concerned about whether we can secure this project in one fell swoop at next week's bidding meeting." Larry crossed his arms in front of his chest, his slender fingers interlocking as he smiled confidently. "Don't worry, this project is definitely ours." I nodded and opened my phone, intending to browse financial news, when I noticed that Freda had added me on WeChat. After accepting, she sent a photo, a picture of her and Larry hiking together yesterday. Freda, with her high ponytail, leaned cheerfully against Larry's shoulder, radiating youthful energy. "Did you see? Your husband spent the whole day with me yesterday." I silently saved the photo and then set her messages to Do Not Disturb. Half an hour later, Larry and I appeared in the company's conference room on time. Also attending this meeting as an observer was Freda. Facing the department manager's puzzled expression, Larry cleared his throat and nodded to signal the start of the meeting. Larry quickly opened the PowerPoint and explained to everyone, "This bid requires 200 million. The company has 150 million on the books, and the remaining 50 million is sponsored by MS. Freda. Let's give her a round of applause to show our appreciation." Thunderous applause erupted, and Freda proudly lifted her chin. After the meeting ended, Freda took Larry's arm right in front of me, pouting and acting coquettishly. "Brother Larry, I've finally come back with great difficulty. Won't you come shopping with me, please?" Larry looked at me with an unclear meaning. I curled my lips and said, "Go ahead, Mr. Larry should indeed spend some quality time with our 50 million. Freda's face turned bright red, and she stammered, For a long time, it's not my fault, really. It's mainly because her blush was applied too heavily today, almost like she was ready to perform in an opera." After working for a while, I opened my phone, and Freda's chat window popped up again. She had sent several more photos of her shopping and watching movies with Larry. I calmly continued to save them. If Larry and I ever face off in court, these will be my strong evidence. After working overtime and returning home in the evening, Larry was unexpectedly at home. When he saw me come up after washing up, he put down the book in his hand. "Gazelle, how about we have a child?" I frowned at him. "Is your grandfather pressuring you again?" He took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "You could say that." I smiled faintly. "I'll talk to grandfather later and tell him we'll have children after the company goes public overseas. To be honest, I don't really want to have children with Larry. He has too many romantic entanglements, and dealing with them would be troublesome. For example, that Freda, Larry's ex-girlfriend from college, after Larry went abroad for further studies, they lost contact. 2 years later, Freda also followed Larry abroad. Unfortunately, just as she stepped onto the campus, Larry graduated and returned to take over his family's affairs, and incidentally married me. The bidding meeting proceeded as scheduled. We went head-to-head with our competitors, revealed our final offers, and ultimately secured the project for $2 billion. Just as Larry had predicted, in the evening, the company held a party to celebrate, just as everyone was teasing Larry and me. Freda arrived late in a red dress, immediately linking arms with Larry. "Sorry I'm late, the traffic was a bit heavy." I looked at her bright red lips and nails and smiled faintly. "It's fine, we've just started." The people below whispered and discussed the relationship between Freda and Larry. Larry cleared his throat lightly, subtly withdrawing his arm, and a faint smile curled his thin lips. "Since you're late, you'll have to drink 3 glasses as a penalty." No one had ever dared to disrupt Larry's event, and she, Freda, was no exception. Freda widened her eyes in disbelief, staring at Larry, then picked up the glass and drank 3 times in a fit of pique, while applause rose and fell around her. During the meal, Larry had just served Freda a bite of food when she pouted and looked at Larry. Larry whispered something in her ear, and she then cheerfully raised her delicate fist to playfully hit his chest. I picked up my glass and took a sip of red wine, when a pair of slender, well-proportioned hands served me a piece of spare ribs. Turning my head, I saw it was the newly promoted sales manager, Marlon, who at just 27 had already secured several major projects and exceeded sales targets. Marlon rubbed his nose and said with a smile, "Ms. Gazelle, the spare ribs here are their specialty. Give them a try." I lowered my head and took a sip. "Not bad, thank you Marlon." I started chatting with Marlon. This newly promoted sales manager has a sharp sense of the market. If he could become my assistant, my work efficiency would be much higher. During a break, I glanced at Larry. Larry was swirling his glass of red wine, staring at the two of us in silence, his eyes resembling those of a hunter. I ignored Larry, but he came over and invited me to go home together. Just about to get in the car, Freda ran over, took the front passenger seat first, and leaned softly against the backrest, looking as if she were drunk. Larry looked at me helplessly. I chuckled lightly, flagged down a taxi to go home, and from the rear window, saw Larry get into the driver's seat, start the car, and drive away. I received a bed photo sent by Freda. The scene was messy but enough to serve as evidence of infidelity. It has to be said, Freda has a figure that's truly something else. Unfortunately, she seems to be a bit of a love-struck fool. I saved the photo and couldn't help but feel distressed. Freda, how could she be so foolish? Foolish enough to deliver the evidence right to my doorstep. Unfortunately, now is not the right time for a divorce. Wait until the stock is issued and the company's market value doubles. By then, when I bring up the divorce and also get Larry's shares, my net worth will grow exponentially. By then, there will be no shortage of men. Without thinking too deeply, my attention quickly shifted to the matter of issuing the stock. Wanting a man is not as good as building a career. Back then, my mother, driven by her romantic obsession, stubbornly married my father who had nothing to his name. After they worked hard to build a successful business together, my father ended up having an affair. He claimed that woman was his true love and even transferred the shares he had worked so hard for to his mistress. In the end, that so-called true love sold the shares, took the money, and ran away. Even the house we lived in was about to be repossessed. It was only after my grandfather stepped in and bought most of the shares that we managed to retain control of the company. As a result, I lost the freedom to choose my own marriage and was forced into a business alliance by marrying Larry. Always keep the initiative in your own hands to prevent being easily kicked out of the game someday, I silently reminded myself. Ms. Gazelle, your schedule is free at noon today, let's have a meal together. Due to the stock listing matters, I had been on business trips for almost half a month. The day I returned to the company, Marlon came over. He had officially become my chief assistant, helping me arrange my daily schedule and assisting with my work. Half a month ago, Marlon had an argument with one of his subordinates, which I happened to witness. The subordinate, relying on his seniority, was defiant towards Marlon as the sales manager. Marlon, being young and hot-tempered, was so angry that his face turned red and his neck thickened. I walked over and helped Marlon out of the awkward situation. Marlon is reliable, so I've also entrusted him with handling some confidential documents. I've been quite busy this month with the stock issuance matters, and he's been working non-stop for half a month as well. It really is time to treat him to a meal as a reward. Thinking this, I curled my lips into a smile and said, "Then let's make it this noon, you pick the place." Looking at Marlon so full of vigor and vitality, I couldn't help but sigh with emotion about how wonderful youth is. Actually, Marlon and I are the same age, it's just that I've been groomed as the family heir since childhood. My parents have always taught me how to become a qualified leader, But they never really considered the issue of age. I also enjoy working. I've been flying around for the past month and haven't even returned home once. During this time, Larry did send me a WeChat message once, but I had a very late meeting that day and forgot to reply. At the dinner table, Marlon kept putting food on my plate. Eat more, boss. You've lost weight, thank you. You should eat too. While we were eating, Freda stormed over and splashed water in my face, then started yelling, "You bitch, I finally caught you. Where have you hidden Larry?" Marlon stood up and shielded me. "Who are you?" Freda pointed at Marlon's nose. "Are you blind? You don't even recognize me. Your grandma." I pulled Marlon aside, nodding to reassure him. Suddenly gathering strength in my palm, I slapped Freda hard across the face, taking advantage of her stunned reaction. I raised my hand and slapped the other side of her face. "You." Freda covered her face, looking at me in disbelief. I rubbed my tingling palm. "That's the price for splashing water on me. Moreover, Ms. Gazelle, it's not really appropriate to openly ask about someone else's husband's whereabouts." The people in the restaurant whispered among themselves upon hearing my words, pointing fingers at Freda. "Cut the nonsense. Where exactly is Larry?" Freda looked as if she was about to pounce on me and tear me apart. "Since the last time you spent the night with him, I haven't seen him." I casually pulled out 2 tissues to wipe my face. The people around us exploded with anger. And all sorts of words like shameless reached our ears. Freda turned pale and then red, threw out the words "you just wait," and fled in embarrassment. As soon as she left, I called the nanny at home and found out that Larry hadn't returned home for the past month either. I fell into deep thought. Larry, where had he been for the past month? "Boss, this meal." Marlon interrupted my thoughts. "Not eating anymore, heading back for a meeting." 2 hours later, Larry appeared in my office. "Welcome home, my dear wife." He walked towards me with his arms outstretched, and I subtly dodged him. "Your woman came looking for you at my place and splashed water in my face. TSK, TSK, TSK. Are you jealous?" Larry withdrew his arms and turned to look at me. I snorted. "Please, in the future, when you're looking for women, don't drag innocent me into it." Larry didn't answer me directly. Instead, he leaned on my desk, propping his head up, and asked, "Haven't you wondered where I've been all these days?" I looked at him, feeling puzzled. We each have our own work to do. What's there to be curious about? His eyes dimmed for a moment, then quickly returned to normal. "Then let's get together as a couple at home tonight. We'll see." With that, I ignored him and opened the contract file to start working. Larry felt awkward and got up to leave. Just then, Marlon pushed the door open. I don't know if it was my imagination, but I felt like the two of them exchanged a barely noticeable glance. I went home in the evening to get some documents, and as soon as I entered, I saw a woman sitting on the sofa with her back to me, crying. Larry was sitting opposite her, holding a cigarette and puffing away. Hearing the sound of the door, the woman turned her head. It was Freda again. Her eyes were red from crying, and tears had ruined her delicate makeup, leaving her face a mess of white and black streaks. Seeing me come in, she stood up and said to me, "Gazelle, I'm pregnant." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, you. Please let me and Larry be together." I looked at Larry, who sat steadily on the sofa without any intention of speaking up. "Whether to let you be together is up to Larry to decide. As long as he agrees, I'll sign immediately." However, leaving with nothing but the shirt on his back, I doubt he'd be willing to do that. Larry stubbed out his cigarette, stood up, and looked at Freda. "I'll give you 5 million as compensation. You should leave." Freda widened her eyes and stared at Larry, pointing at me in disbelief. "Are you really going to give up the chance to acquire the Maxwell family's group for her?" "Huh. I've never heard about this before." "Larry, when are you planning to acquire the Maxwell family's corporation?" I asked in confusion. Freda continued furiously. "Larry, she doesn't even know about the acquisition plan. While I can help you seize this opportunity in one fell swoop, are you sure you only want her?" "Larry, please answer my question." When it came to the company, my tone grew increasingly firm. Larry took a step toward me, trying to grab my hand. "Gazelle, I've already drafted the proposal and implementation plan. Please stay out of this matter." I took a step back. "Is the company yours alone? What do you think you're doing?" It seems Larry's wolfish ambition is growing stronger, even to the point of trying to undermine my authority. Freda ignored all this, screaming hysterically like a madwoman. "I know all the information about the Maxwell family's corporation. Mrs. Black, I am the one who can help you more." Freda pointed her red nails at my face. "And her, with her unclear relationships with company subordinates, is utterly unworthy of being your wife." "Shut up. Anyone who hears such an insult can't help but get angry." "Ms. Gazelle, watch your language. Now please leave, or I'll call security." Seeing Freda's crazy behavior, Larry decisively took out his phone to call security. I poured myself a glass of water and looked at Larry. Mr. Larry, do you have anything to say to me? Larry lit another cigarette. Gazelle, I know I didn't inform you about this in advance, but if we acquire the Maxwell family group, we'll become the largest corporation in the province. I couldn't help interrupting him. Larry, is this what you've been doing for the past month? You know we're in the middle of an overseas stock listing project that requires substantial funding right now. What are you trying to achieve by acquiring the Maxwell family group, accelerating our capital drain? Gazelle, you don't need to worry too much about company matters. Just focus on being Mrs. Black, and don't worry about Freda either. I'm just using her information to benefit the company. In the end, the ones standing at the top will only be you and me. Only the two of us are a perfect match made in heaven. A perfect match. I only feel disdain, using such despicable means to profit. Does he really think I would feel honored? I sneered coldly. We are both shareholders of the company. Without my agreement, you won't be able to pull it off. Then let the board vote decide. We'll have a meeting tomorrow at 8 a.m. sharp. Larry grabbed his coat and headed out, watching his retreating figure. I felt Freda's assessment of him was spot on, selfish and profit-driven. Such a man is unworthy of being my husband. The next day at the board meeting, Larry narrowly passed the proposal to acquire the Maxwell family's group by a single vote. I sat in my chair, my face ashen with anger. The crucial vote was cast by Marlon, and moreover, the proposal that Larry took this morning bears our company's official seal. The official seal has always been in my custody. After Marlon joined, it was handed over to him for management, precisely because I was worried about Larry scheming behind the scenes. The first rule I set for Marlon was that any use of the seal must be approved by me, especially when it involves Larry. After the meeting ended, Marlon came to my office with an apologetic expression. I'm sorry, President Gazelle, it was my fault for not keeping the official seal secure, allowing Mr. Larry to take advantage of the situation. Are you suggesting that Larry stole the official seal? Marlon nodded, and I was truly infuriated to the point of laughter. I pushed the computer toward him. The surveillance footage inside showed Marlon handing the company seal to Larry, and the two even patted each other on the shoulder. You've been monitoring me. Marlon widened his eyes in disbelief. A position like chief assistant naturally requires real-time monitoring. I've been too busy lately, allowing you to take advantage of the situation. I turned the computer toward me. Your employment contract states that privately handing over the company seal to anyone other than Gazelle is classified as theft of commercial secrets according to company regulations. You're going to end up in jail. Marlon panicked. Mr. Gazelle. I had a momentary lapse in judgment. Please, considering all the work I've done during this time, be merciful and let me off. I lifted my eyelids slightly. Why should I let you off? What benefits did Larry give you? Marlon quickly said. Mr. Larry trusts me a lot. I can help you with anything. As long as you don't call the police. I looked at Marlon wagging his tail and said, all right, then I want Larry to leave with nothing but the clothes on his back. With the support of the board members, the acquisition of the Maxwell family group was completed smoothly. However, Larry and I also signed an agreement. If the overseas stock listing fails, Larry will surrender all his shares, to win my trust, and also acknowledging he was in the wrong. Larry signed this unequal treaty. Next, the Real show begins. In order to complete the stock listing as soon as possible, Larry urgently needed a large amount of capital. After exhausting all borrowing methods, he was still short by 10 million. Marlon, under my direction, recommended a highly profitable financial product to him. At first, there were indeed returns, but as Larry increased his investment, he ended up losing everything. Larry had no choice but to admit defeat. Gazelle, can our years of marriage not compare to these trivial stocks? Larry was still making a last-ditch effort. Moreover, Freda said that after acquiring the Maxwell family group, we would receive a large number of orders originally belonging to the Maxwell family group. How is it that this time, there isn't a single order? She couldn't have misjudged. I smiled faintly. Of course there were no orders, because the Maxwell family's group's orders had all been intercepted by my privately owned subsidiary. And this company has nothing to do with Larry. It was part of my dowry from my maternal family. I said to Larry, the problem is, you trusted Freda too much. Impossible. I know the Maxwell family group's internal data like the back of my hand. How could we be losing money? Freda loves me so much. She couldn't possibly deceive me. I sneered. She might not deceive you. But Larry, as the CEO, placing 100% trust in a woman, don't you find that ridiculous? Tomorrow is the day Larry's shares are transferred to my account. Once I get his 20% stake, plus my original 20%, I'll become the company's largest shareholder. Just thinking about it makes me a little excited. Then I suddenly remembered that I left my equity transfer agreement in the office. I decided to drive back to get it. Just as I pulled up to the intersection, a tall Land Rover sped towards me. I swerved the steering wheel hard, but it was too late to avoid it. My car crashed into the guardrail on the side, and I was left battered and bleeding. As my consciousness began to fade, I vaguely saw someone get out of the other vehicle. The streetlight glinted off the sharp knife in their hand, the reflection hitting my pupils. I can't die. This was the only thought in my mind. I slapped myself hard a few times to stay awake, dragged my leg out of the car, and ran toward the supermarket ahead where there were more people. The person behind me was relentless in pursuit. Injured as I was quickly tackled to the ground. A sharp knife hovered right above my brow. I held his hand with all my strength, but the difference in strength between men and women was too great. Just as I was losing strength and thought I was going to die here, a patrolling police car noticed the commotion and rushed over. Seeing the situation turning against him, the man let go of me and fled. I was taken to the hospital. Fortunately, there were no broken bones, but my head was cut open and my foot was swollen. Who wanted to kill me? Larry, Marlon, or Freda? After being discharged from the hospital, I went to Freda's place. To my surprise, she hadn't gotten rid of the baby. To her surprise, I was actually still alive. Because her first words were, "You're okay." Realizing she had let it slip, Freda suddenly changed her tone. "What are you doing here?" She glared at me and started to close the door. I shook the fruit I was holding. "I'm here on behalf of my husband to check on his mistress and child, and I'm not dead." "Disappointed, aren't you?" "I don't know what you're talking about." Freda, she guiltily avoided my gaze. "It seems my speculation was correct. She's one of those who wants me dead. I just don't know if there are any accomplices." Seeing Freda lacking confidence, I seized the opportunity to say, "It's just a divorce, right? That's easy to handle. Larry has been removed from the board, but his family's backing is still there. You're carrying Larry's child, and the Black family won't just abandon you and the child." Freda stared at me wide-eyed. "Are you telling the truth?" "Of course, but you have to tell me, who was it that tried to have me killed the other day?" I don't know what you're talking about. You understand," I replied to her with a smile, using a tone of certainty. Sure enough, Freda panicked a bit. Holding her stomach, she said, "I just wanted to teach you a lesson. Larry bribed the driver to kill you, and I only found out about it later." I narrowed my eyes. "Is that true?" "It's true. I have no reason to want you dead. Larry came to see me. He acknowledges this child." Well, just as I suspected, Larry was driven to desperate measures and wanted me dead. Since we're not yet divorced, as my husband, he would naturally inherit all my shares, just like Larry, always finding a way. Unfortunately for him, I didn't die. Since I'm still alive, he can get lost now. "You will become Mrs. Black. But you need to do something." Freda couldn't wait to ask, "What do I need to do?" She's catching on quickly. "Go find a reporter and tell them every detail of your relationship with Larry. Once your story makes the front page headlines, Larry won't be able to deny it even if he wants to. Then I'll divorce Larry, and you can leverage your child to claim the position of Mrs. Black. How does that sound?" Freda looked at me guardedly. "Then won't all our affairs be exposed? Everyone will know I'm the mistress who climbed my way up." I raised an eyebrow and said, "Not bad, Ms. Gazelle. At least you know you're the mistress." Seeing Freda's face turn pale and then flush with anger, I continued, "The reason I want you to step forward is to speed up the divorce process between me and Larry, making it clean and straightforward. Otherwise, with just the photos you sent me, I could still get a divorce, but I can't guarantee whether he might heartlessly abandon you and the child to prove his loyalty to me." Freda clenched her fists. "All right, I agree, but can I really become Mrs. Black? Then it's up to you. In any case, I'm determined to divorce Larry." Freda clenched her fists. "Fine. I don't care who becomes my husband, but if he can't form a powerful alliance with me, I won't hesitate to cut ties quickly." That evening, as expected, I saw Freda's tearful accusation video on TV. It included not only photos and videos but also ultrasound reports and Larry's purchase records of luxury goods for her. I curled my lips, thinking how terrifying a woman with a love-struck brain can be. She never stopped to consider that if Larry found out she had exposed his private affairs to the media, he would probably want to kill her. How could he possibly marry her then? Larry went crazy calling me after seeing the news. Leaving over 80 missed calls in one night, I quietly watched my phone screen light up and go dark, and eventually blocked him. The next day, Larry and his grandfather came to the office to see me. Although his grandfather was already in his 70s, he was still spirited and moved with agility. And to be honest, I really admired the grandfather. Starting from nothing, he went from selling wontons at a street stall to establishing the Black family group. Supporting the entire family on his own, Grandpa looked at me with a guilty expression. "Gazelle, you've seen the news, haven't you?" I nodded. Grandpa continued, "Sigh, Larry has been spoiled since he was a child. I never expected he would do such a shameful thing now. Gazelle, don't worry. We will give you an explanation. After all, Larry is so outstanding, it's normal for women to cling to him. As long as he has you in his heart, that's what matters. Grandpa, I plan to divorce Larry," I said calmly, as if talking about something completely unrelated to me. Span Grandpa replied, "Men, they all make mistakes. Divorce isn't worth it. Will your grandfather agree to it?" Span, "I've already spoken with Grandpa, and I'm worried that if I don't get a divorce soon, I might not even be able to keep my life." "Gazelle, what do you mean by that?" Facing Grandpa's puzzled inquiry, I took out the voice recorder. The hit-and-run driver from that day had been caught, and before being sent to the police station, he confessed that Larry had instructed him to commit murder. He also said that after the deed was done, he would be paid $1 million. To be safe, he had kept the chat records with Larry. With the evidence right in front of him, Grandpa heavily tapped his cane on the ground, turned angrily to Larry, and said, "I thought you were just young and liked to have fun, but I never expected someone so young to be so malicious, even wanting to kill your own wife. The Black family group doesn't need someone like you. You are not fit to be my successor." Larry panicked. "Grandpa, let me explain," I said to Larry. "Mr. Larry, you can wait to eat prison food." Grandpa sighed and turned to leave. Larry chased after him trying to explain. "It seems the successor of the Black family conglomerate might need to be someone else." I soon submitted the evidence to the court as well. No matter how Larry tried to threaten or bribe me, I was determined to get a divorce. After the verdict was handed down, Larry's properties and vehicles were all transferred to me. Moreover, after taking over Larry's shares and liquidating the assets he had trapped with Marlon, the company's stock soon successfully went public overseas, instantly tripling my net worth. As for Marlon, I showed him mercy and merely had him dismissed from the group. It's good for young people to be ambitious, but it's a pity when they take shortcuts and end up on the wrong path. His ambitious nature ultimately led to his dismissal, which must have been a heavy blow to him. I can finally relax and enjoy my vacation. I've been so busy lately that I'm completely exhausted, both physically and mentally. It's perfect that I have nothing to do today. So I thought I'd go for a walk downtown and buy some things for my trip. As soon as I entered the mall, I saw a man hitting a pregnant woman. The crowd of onlookers grew larger, but no one dared to step in and break up the fight. I took a closer look and realized the man was Larry, and the woman lying on the ground. "Stop!" I rushed forward to help Freda up. She was trembling all over and tightly grabbed my arm. Save me," a bystander shouted. "The police and ambulance are on their way." I looked up at Larry. There was no trace of the elegant gentleman he once was. His hair was a mess plastered to his forehead, his face unshaven, and he was still wearing the same clothes from the day the verdict was announced. Wrinkled and slightly yellowed, he seemed to have lost all control. Stepping forward to kick Freda again. "It's all because of this bitch. I'm penniless now, drowning in debt, disowned by my family. Where can I go? It's all because of this bitch." As he moved to attack again, perhaps inspired by the sight of a seemingly fragile woman stepping in, the onlookers rushed forward and subdued Larry, while Freda was rushed to the hospital. Freda, before being wheeled into the operating room, she tightly grabbed my hand. Save the baby." Her helpless eyes were like those of a fragile fawn. I squeezed her hand firmly. Freda's baby was born 1 month premature, requiring an emergency C-section. Fortunately, both mother and child were safe. When I went to see her, she was holding the baby, lost in thought. I put down the fruit I was carrying and walked over gently. "How are you feeling?" Freda gently patted the child with her hand. "I plan to raise the child alone. Didn't you want to become Mrs. Black?" Freda looked down and chuckled softly, gazing at the baby in her arms with loving eyes. "But I discovered that Larry doesn't love me. The moment I touched his interests, he abandoned me without hesitation. He only ever loves himself. I can't rest easy letting my child live with such a father." Freda had softened considerably after giving birth, radiating a maternal aura all over. I patted her on the shoulder. "Let me know anytime if you need help." "Okay, thank you." Larry was locked up for intentional assault, and he will face severe punishment. I took my mom to Sonia for a trip to relax. Walking on the warm, soft sand and looking at the picturesque scenery in the distance. This feeling was truly wonderful. In the distance, men and women were dressed in light clothing. I held a coconut and leaned back on the lounge chair, basking in the sun. A dark, bony hand reached over, holding my hat. "Miss, is this yours?" A magnetic voice spoke up. I followed the arm upward and saw a man wearing sunglasses, flashing a bright smile at me. His well-built muscles looked especially appealing under the sunlight. In his hand was the hat I had lost earlier while surfing. I stood up, took the hat, and gave him a faint smile. "Yes, thank you, you're welcome, beautiful miss. May I add you on WeChat?" The man was very polite, and of course, very handsome. Sure, who doesn't like a handsome man? We took out our phones to scan each other's codes, and I asked with a smile, "What's your surname?" The handsome guy flashed his signature 8-tooth smile again. "My surname is Black." Black. Noticing my puzzled expression, he generously extended his hand. "Max. I'm your husband Larry's younger brother." I remember now, when I married Larry, his uncle was studying in the UK, so he didn't attend. I don't have much impression of this person. But what is his purpose in approaching me this time? To take back the shares of the Black family? Or to continue the alliance between the two families through marriage? I meaningfully extended my hand. "Nice to meet you, Max. No matter what his purpose is, as long as I remain the hunter, that's enough." And so the first story ends. What do you all think? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed it, please give this video a like. Now, here's the second story. I spent 25 years in an orphanage until my family found me and recognized me as their long-lost biological daughter. They arranged a marriage alliance for me, but the originally intended fiancé Jonas backed out and insisted on marrying that imposter Emily, just as I was in a desperate situation. My longtime friend Hogan stepped forward, married me, and helped me out of the predicament. However, by chance, I overheard a conversation between my fiancé and my husband. "Back then, I listened to you, deliberately rejected the marriage, and even had a big fight with you. Wasn't it convincing?" The fiancé sneered, sending her to a rural school and having the underworld intimidate her a bit. "Emily is in a much better mood now. As long as Emily is satisfied, anything I do is worth it." Her husband responded casually. "It turns out that the friendship and love I firmly believed in were nothing but an elaborately orchestrated deception. From start to finish, I was merely a pawn in their hands, being played for a fool, while the rural school I was in charge of was still under construction." A group of underworld thugs stormed in, causing destruction and looting. I was held down at the scene as they brutally broke my right hand, the pain nearly causing me to lose consciousness. Leaving the hospital, my right hand was wrapped in a thick cast, and I rushed home in a state of frantic anxiety. It was clear those gangsters were targeting Florence's family. I ran all the way home, terrified that my husband might be endangered because of me. However, as I stood at the front door, I heard a familiar voice from inside. It was my former fiancé, Jonas. "Back then, I listened to you and deliberately rejected the marriage with Ethel. I even had a big fight with you. Wasn't it all very convincing?" Jonas's voice was full of a cold laugh, his tone dripping with smugness. "After arranging for her to be sent to a rural school and having the underworld give her a scare, Emily is in a much better mood. As long as Emily is satisfied, anything I do is worth it." Her husband Hogan responded nonchalantly, his voice so calm it didn't carry a single ripple of emotion. I trembled all over, as if a basin of ice-cold water had been poured over me from head to toe, chilling me to the bone in an instant. I pressed my hand tightly over my mouth, afraid that even the slightest sound might escape and alert the two men inside who had both betrayed me. On the bus back to school, my mind was filled with fragments of memories from all these years. I spent 25 years in the orphanage until I was found by the Florence family, who claimed I was their long-lost biological daughter. They arranged a marriage alliance for me, but my fiancé Jonas refused and insisted on marrying that fake daughter Emily instead. Just when I was in trouble, my longtime friend Hogan stepped forward and married me, helping me out of the predicament. On my wedding day, I made a point to invite the director of the orphanage, uncle, and all the friends I grew up with. Due to family connections, Jonas also attended, holding his wine glass. He sneered at me and uncle, the director, saying, "Oh, we're drinking Romani Conti, which costs 200,000 a bottle. Do you country bumpkins from such poor backgrounds even know how to appreciate it?" His tone was full of contempt. Uncle and the others were so embarrassed that their faces turned red. They awkwardly set down their glasses, unsure of what to do. At that moment, Hogan walked over to me and toasted to the dean. He said coldly to Jonas, "Isn't it just a drink? What's the difference between this and beer or soda? It's really low to belittle someone over such a trivial matter. Jonas was so choked up that his face turned red, and he immediately threw a punch at Hogan. The two of them started fighting fiercely, even tearing their custom-made suits. In the end, it was my parents who came out to mediate and pulled them apart. I had always thought that the two of them were like fire and water, unable to stand each other. It turns out that the friendship and love I had so firmly believed in were nothing but an elaborately woven deception. From start to finish, I was merely a pawn in their hands, played like a fool. It wasn't until late at night that Hogan's call finally came. His voice carried a hint of urgency. "Ethel, I heard someone caused trouble at your school. Are you all right?" I held the phone, feeling as if a blunt knife was repeatedly cutting through my heart, the pain so intense I could barely breathe. To please Emily, he teamed up with Jonas and didn't hesitate to hire thugs to intimidate me. It was clearly me who got my arm broken, and clearly he had a hand in all of this. Yet now he still pretends to care about me, and I can't help but sneer. My silence seemed to make him somewhat uneasy, and his tone grew more urgent. "Ethel, are you okay? I heard your arm was broken. Is it serious? Do you want me to come see you at school now?" I gritted my teeth, trying hard to keep my voice as calm as ever. "It's fine. I've already been to the hospital. It's late at night, and it's too much trouble. You're so busy at work you don't even have time to eat, so don't bother coming." I lay down on the bed, pulled up the covers, and closed my eyes, but my mind kept replaying all the events of these years like a movie. When I first stepped into Florence's home, my parents were so warm and enthusiastic that I was deeply moved, thinking they wanted to make up for all the time we had missed over the years. But before long, they started urging me to marry Jonas, and it suddenly dawned on me, the family's funding chain had broken down, and they were counting on this marriage alliance to fill the huge financial gap. But Jonas, he swore he would never marry me, insisting on marrying that fake heiress Emily. Kenneth's family eventually helped Florence's family cover that deficit. From then on, my parents became even more affectionate toward Jonas and Emily, treating them like the family treasures, while I was just the useless daughter who couldn't contribute anything. Later, I married Hogan and worked day and night for the company, wanting my parents to see my efforts and not let anyone look down on me. At first, life was relatively calm and peaceful. However, at a critical moment during a roadshow with an American partner, Emily suddenly fainted on stage, and the roadshow materials were leaked in advance. The company suffered huge losses overnight, with its market value evaporating by billions. My younger sister repeatedly hinted that I was the one who leaked the materials, and even said she felt guilty about the failed roadshow, threatening to commit suicide. I couldn't defend myself and was sent by my family to the most remote rural school. The school wasn't fully built yet and lacked everything. During busy times, I even had to move materials myself, leaving my hands covered in countless blisters. Hogan confidently promised that once he settled matters at home, he would come to the school to accompany me, but I waited for a whole month, and I didn't even catch a glimpse of him. It turns out that from the very beginning, Hogan was wholeheartedly in love with Emily alone. It turns out that between him and me, there were countless lies. In order to help Emily win her parents' favor, he had Jonas refuse the arranged marriage with me, cleverly facilitating the marriage between Jonas and Emily. To stabilize me and gain my complete trust, Hogan even went so far as to marry me, using his own happiness as the price. Looking back now, that accident during the roadshow was most likely the result of careful planning by him and Emily and her husband. They meticulously schemed, wanting to completely destroy me so I could no longer compete with Emily. The dormitory at the rural school was bitterly cold, with wind seeping through the cracks in the windows, and I couldn't help but shiver uncontrollably. But my heart is even colder. I dialed the number of the orphanage director. The familiar warm voice came from the other end of the line, and I could no longer hold back. Tears streamed down my face, and my voice choked up so much I could hardly speak. "Uncle Director, I miss you all so much, the Florence family. I don't want to stay here anymore." The next morning, I dragged my exhausted body to school. "Ethel." Hogan was standing at the door. He quickly walked over, his voice filled with concern. "Ethel, how are you feeling now?" I sneered inwardly, thinking how he had carefully orchestrated all of this, yet still pretended to be concerned for Emily. He really used all the acting skills he had in his lifetime. I said lightly, "It's fine. The cast is already on. The doctor said it will heal soon." Perhaps it was because I looked quite miserable, my face pale, my arm wrapped in thick bandages. Hogan's eyes still showed deep worry. He looked somewhat apologetic and troubled. "Sorry, Ethel, I have work at the company this afternoon. I can't stay with you today." I forced a smile and said softly, "It's fine. You should hurry and take care of the company matters. Carrying a bunch of things, he said, no rush, I'll make you something delicious to eat before I go. Before I could even refuse, he headed off towards the school dormitory he had just left not long ago. Emily appeared with her nose in the air. She was wearing a gorgeous dress, looked me up and down, her expression full of disdain. Dear sister, I heard you got beaten up. I came to take a good, long look at you. She dragged out her words. Her tone full of mockery. Although my hand was broken, I was still doing the work of learning wilderness cleaning. My clothes were covered in mud and dirt, making me look utterly miserable. She casually raised her hand, the limited edition Van Cleef Arpels bracelet on her wrist sparkling in the sunlight. Clearly worth a fortune. I had once accidentally seen the box for this bracelet in the corner of the walk-in closet at home. Hogan explained at the time, this is a gift for a female client. But I never expected that the female client she mentioned was actually Emily. Emily noticed me looking at the bracelet, let out a cold snort, and curled her lips into a disdainful smirk. Sister, look at you, so utterly unsophisticated. She slightly lifted her chin, her eyes filled with contempt. Covered in mud, looking so shabby, completely unfit for any decent occasion. If I were you, I would have hidden away somewhere long ago. How dare you shamelessly cling to staying at Florence's house? It's just too embarrassing, she sneered coldly, her lips curling into a mocking smile. So what if you're the biological child? You still can't outdo me. I couldn't be bothered to deal with her anymore and was just about to turn and leave when a sudden cry came from the top floor. Danger, get out of the way. A cartload of red bricks cascaded down from above like a waterfall, sending dust flying and making the ground thud as the bricks crashed down. Emily screamed in terror. At the critical moment, Hogan dashed over like lightning, pulling Emily away in one swift motion. I instinctively dodged to the side quickly, but I was still a step too late. A red brick landed heavily on the top of my foot. The sharp pain shot through my entire body like an electric current. I was in so much pain I couldn't speak, could only grit my teeth, and cold sweat instantly broke out. Hogan didn't even notice me. He grabbed Emily's arm anxiously and asked urgently, Emily, are you okay? Emily gasped, a pained expression on her face, her voice carrying an exaggerated tremble. Brother-in-law, it hurts so much. I think I've sprained my ankle. Hogan glanced at me, a flicker of complex emotion in his eyes. Ethel, your sister is injured. It's urgent. I'm taking her to the hospital right away. I'll come see you tomorrow. After saying that, he didn't bother with formalities, directly supporting Emily and left without looking back. I stood amidst the scattered bricks and dust, the pain in my foot making it almost impossible to stand steadily. Looking down, I saw a pool of blood seeping through my shoe, the bright red blood starkly vivid against the dim, grey ground. The next moment, I could no longer hold on, my body swayed violently, and I collapsed to the ground. The school teachers were terrified. They helped me into a car and rushed me to the nearest clinic. The doctor at the clinic took one look at my blooded foot and his expression changed. The injury is too severe, you need to get to a city hospital immediately. The teachers hurriedly sent me to the city hospital. I only felt a grey haze before my eyes, my consciousness gradually fading until I finally sank into darkness. I was unconscious for a day and a night. When I woke up, I found myself in a white hospital room. The doctor stood by the bed, his face filled with helplessness and regret, sighing and shaking his head. It's too late, the injury to your foot is too severe. And we can no longer save it. We had to amputate half of your foot. We've been trying to call your family, but no one answered. The situation was critical, so we proceeded with the surgery. The hospital director, who had rushed over upon hearing the news, stood at the doorway just in time to hear the doctor's words. His lips trembled, but no words came out. He simply wiped his tears in silence. I struggled to reach for the phone by my bedside. The screen was filled with messages from Emily. Sis, our whole family is going to Europe for the new year. It's not convenient for you to come along from the countryside, so just focus on your schoolwork. Mom and Dad said my birthday is coming up, and they're going to buy me a big house in Europe as a birthday gift. In the photo, Emily is holding a champagne glass, wearing an expensive evening gown, standing on a luxury yacht with the azure sea and clear sky behind her, surrounded by her parents, Jonas and Hogan. She celebrated her 24th birthday with a beaming smile, while my 25th birthday finds me lying here, facing my amputated half foot. With trembling fingers, I made a voice call to Hogan. The call connected but was immediately hung up, followed by a voice message popping up. It was Emily's voice, carrying a hint of frivolity and mockery. Sis, your husband is keeping me company and we're having a great time. You should stop calling and just focus on doing your rough work in the countryside. I called my parents next, but every call was rejected. I put down my phone, feeling as if my heart were being tightly clenched and then brutally pounded. The pain was so intense I could barely breathe. For the next week, Emily kept posting photos of the family's outings, eating, drinking, and having fun, and even tagged me in every single one. I simply ignored them all. Hogan sent me a message once. Your sister was frightened at the school construction site and has been feeling down again. Mom and Dad wanted to cheer her up, and since her birthday is coming up, they chartered a flight to Europe for the new year. Don't overthink it, I bought you a lot of gifts. And I'll give them to you when you come home. His tone carried a deliberate gentleness, but it felt incredibly ironic to me. Overthink? What could I possibly overthink? They are a happy and harmonious family, while I am nothing but the outsider they least need. A week later, I limped back to school. The place had been on vacation since the last incident, and there wasn't a single person around. A clap of thunder tore through the sky, a fierce wind rose abruptly, and a torrential downpour began to pour. I stood in the rain, a smile spreading across my face. Meanwhile, Hogan's plane had just landed back in the country. He turned on his phone, and the notifications of over a dozen missed calls chimed one after another. He called back, and his assistant's voice on the other end was filled with terror and choked with sobs. Mr. Hogan, it's terrible. The entire school building that the young lady was in charge of constructing has collapsed. She's been buried alive. She's gone. Hogan held the phone, his entire body as if struck by lightning, his mind completely blank, his eyes widened, his voice trembling with a hint of disbelief. What did you say? The rest of the family gradually received the news as well. Just as he reached the parking lot, Hogan suddenly snatched the keys from the driver, rushed to the car, and frantically started the engine. He pressed the accelerator hard, the car speeding along, nearly running several red lights along the way. By the time he reached the construction site, the original building had completely collapsed, reduced to a pile of rubble. After the heavy rain, the ground was covered in mud and debris, the air thick with the pungent smell of dust and blood. Hogan suddenly felt as if a part of him had been violently torn away, the pain so intense he could barely breathe. He couldn't help but kneel on the ground, his hands frantically clawing at the pile of stones, trying to dig out a glimmer of hope. His movements grew increasingly frantic, his nails breaking one by one on the hard rubble, blood dripping from his fingers into the mud. Emily also rushed over. She walked up to Hogan, grabbed his arm, and pouted. Brother-in-law, stop digging. Sister has already passed away. Let her go in peace. Hogan seemed not to hear, just frantically digging through the rubble. My parents stood by, sighing incessantly. A week later, Hogan had neither eaten nor drunk, and his body finally couldn't hold on any longer. He collapsed at the construction site and was rushed to the hospital for an 4 drip of nutrients. When he woke up, his assistant looked at him with eyes full of concern. Mr. Hogan, you're awake. Hogan threw off the covers. I'm going to find Ethel. The assistant held her down, hesitating to speak. Mr. Hogan, Master Lynn and his wife have already held the funeral for the young lady. They said if too much time passes, the young lady's soul won't be able to rest in peace. Hogan slumped back against the headboard, muttering to himself. No, Ethel isn't dead, he must still be alive. The assistant sighed softly. My condolences. Hogan stared vacantly at the ceiling. The assistant hesitated for a few seconds before speaking. Mr. Hogan, on my way here, I saw some things online. Maybe you should take a look. Hogan pulled out his phone in confusion and found that someone had uploaded a video. It was during the wedding, when he and Jonas were in the smoking room. Jonas took a puff of his cigar and said in a frivolous tone, later, I'll go pick a fight with that Ethel and give all those poor wretches from the orphanage a good scolding. Then you show up and speak up for them. Ethel will be so grateful to you, and things will be much easier from then on. Hogan remained silent for a moment, then said softly, all right, if doing this can help Emily. Jonas snorted coldly. Emily is having so much fun outside. I have my own reasons for marrying her. From now on, she can do her thing, and I'll do mine. If you two want to sleep together, just don't let me see it. Hogan's face instantly turned grim. I don't have that kind of thought. I only wish for her happiness. Jonas sneered, a man in his 20s or 30s, acting all innocent. All right, I'm heading out first. Remember what I said. Make sure to show up at the right moment. This video instantly exploded across the internet, causing an uproar among everyone. Florence's home. The two sons-in-law of the group turned out to be such people. One enjoys fooling around with mixed-race young models outside, while the other has improper intentions toward his sister-in-law. The Florence family was instantly plunged into a massive public controversy. With their stock prices plummeting and criticism pouring in from all sides, by the time I heard this news, I was already in the southernmost city of the motherland. This video was accidentally discovered by the orphanage while cleaning out the surveillance hard drives. Consider it my final gift to Hogan and the Florence family. My foot was permanently damaged after the amputation surgery, and I will always walk with a limp. Every time I go out, people always give me sympathetic or strange looks, which makes me feel a bit upset. However, I've long grown accustomed to such gazes, because life must go on. I run a pottery studio in this city. Back at the orphanage, the director taught us pottery making, and I never expected this skill would become my profession now. There's a little girl named Flora in the studio, who's particularly adorable and always secretly glances at my leg with her big eyes. One time, she couldn't hold back anymore and asked me, "Ms. Ethel, what happened to your leg? Why do you have an iron brace on it?" I softly told her, "I injured my foot before, and this iron brace is to stabilize my ankle. The brace will retire next year. I've already scheduled a titanium alloy brace, and after the surgery next year, the situation will be much better." Her eyes immediately lit up. "Then your leg will be better by next year, right?" I couldn't bear to shatter her hopeful guess, so I replied with a smile, "It should be." The little girl jumped up happily. "That's great. Yay." One day after class, she led a handsome man into the studio and excitedly introduced, "Ms. Ethel, this is my little uncle. His name is Kevin. Uncle, this is the one I was talking about. The very, very beautiful Ms. Ethel. Didn't you say you didn't believe me? Now that you've seen her in person, isn't she especially beautiful?" Kevin's face turned red, and he quickly covered Flora's mouth. Flora broke free from him, ran over, and took my hand. "Ms. Ethel, I won a prize in the competition this time. You said if I won a prize, you'd help me fulfill a wish, so, could you come with us to the amusement park?" Her eyes were full of anticipation. I patted her head and said with a smile, "Sure." So, I accompanied Flora and her little uncle to the amusement park. When we passed by the rock climbing area, Kevin suddenly asked me, "Ms. Ethel, do you dare to try this?" I looked down at my legs, feeling a bit hesitant, but he looked at me encouragingly, his eyes full of trust. I took a deep breath and nodded. At that moment, I felt as if I had conquered the inner demon that had haunted me all along. After that, it became unstoppable. I accompanied them in playing all kinds of outdoor activities. During a follow-up checkup, the doctor looked at my leg and remarked with emotion, "Your foot is getting better and better." Once, while playing an escape room, I was so scared that I instinctively hid beside Kevin. He shielded me behind him, his voice low, "Ethel, would you be with me?" "Flora, she says she likes you very much." I asked softly, "What about you?" "I like you too," he answered solemnly. In the darkness, I could feel my breathing becoming slightly rapid. If there were any light, he would definitely see my burning, flushed face. "I need to be serious with you," I said earnestly. "Kevin, I feel it's necessary to confess some things from the past." When we stepped out, I held his hand tightly, as if grasping a long-lost warmth. In that moment, the parts of my heart that had once been broken and desolate seemed to sprout oases anew. For a while, I came across news about Hogan and Emily online again. Emily and Jonas succumbed to the pressure from online public opinion and filed for divorce. But Emily never expected that Jonas had an ulterior motive from the very beginning of their marriage. Jonas's family had long coveted the struggling Florence family and sought to take them over. After marriage, Jonas gradually stripped the Florence family's conglomerate of its power. He quietly took back all the money he had previously invested and made off with the remaining assets of the Florence family as well. Emily and Jonas got nothing when they went through their divorce proceedings. After losing everything, my parents and Emily had no choice but to move into a relocation housing unit, crammed together and living in utter destitution. Less than 2 weeks later, Emily got fed up with my parents nagging and heartlessly kicked them out onto the streets. Meanwhile, Hogan had already left Florence's house after my funeral, vanishing without a trace. On the first anniversary of our relationship, Kevin and I were walking hand in hand by the river, watching the fireworks. "Ethel." A furious voice suddenly called out from behind. I looked up and saw an unexpected person standing before me. Emily's eyes were filled with endless hatred, as if they were about to spit fire. "So it's you, Ethel. I knew you weren't dead. How dare you fake your death, you bitch," Emily roared, her voice filled with rage and resentment. "Ethel, do you have any idea you've destroyed the entire Florence family?" Her hair was disheveled, her complexion sallow, and she wore an oversized t-shirt stained with grease and dirt, looking utterly wretched. I sneered and retorted, destroyed. You're the one who schemed tirelessly to marry Jonas, and you're the one who plotted to send me to that rural school where I got beaten. Florence family's downfall is your doing. What does it have to do with me? You're just getting what you deserve." Enraged by my words, her gaze fell upon Kevin, and a look of understanding crossed her face. Well. Instead of staying with your husband at home, you've found yourself a new lover. Ethel, you really are a slut." I glared at her, my tone icy cold. "Say one more word, and I'll tear your mouth apart." Emily didn't know when to stop, and her words became even more outrageous. "Little handsome, can this Ethel satisfy you? Is she as boring as a dead fish in bed? Why don't you be with me instead? I know way more tricks than she does." I couldn't take it anymore and slapped her hard across the face. "Ethel, what are you doing?" I turned around and found my parents standing behind me. They were also dressed in rags, their eyes still filled with disgust for me. I snorted coldly. "What am I doing? I'm teaching this idiot a lesson." My mother was furious. "You need to apologize to Emily right now." Kevin patted my shoulder and said softly, "Ethel, don't get angry with fools. Let's go." Emily blocked my way, and I yelled at her, "Get out of my way." My mother shouted loudly, "How could I have a daughter as ungrateful as you? How could I have given birth to such a wicked child?" I smiled self-deprecatingly and said, "Do you still consider me your daughter? When I was hurt, where were you? You were having so much fun traveling in Europe." My father glared in fury. "You ungrateful daughter. What kind of outrageous attitude is this? Apologize to your mother and your sister right now." I struggled to hold back the stinging tears in my eyes, my voice trembling as I said, "Yes, 26 years ago, you gave birth to me, but you abandoned me in an orphanage. For over 20 years, I managed just fine on my own. It was you who begged and pleaded for me to return to the Florence family, promising to make it up to me. And what happened? You forced me into a marriage alliance, then kicked me out to the countryside without even hearing my side of the story. When I became disabled, you didn't care in the slightest. Is this what you call making it up to me? Emily can do no wrong in your eyes. You always forgive her, no matter what. But what about me? Where were you when my foot was amputated? Search your hearts. Have you ever truly treated me as your own daughter?" Emily suddenly changed her expression, looking aggrieved as she choked out, "Sister, I know you think I stole Mom and Dad's love from you. You hate me, but you can't willfully destroy the Florence family." I burst into laughter and said mockingly, "All right, Emily, stop pretending. All these years, how many underhanded tricks have you played behind my back, fanning the flames, framing me? Wasn't it all for the Florence family fortune? You've schemed so hard, thinking you could manipulate both Jonas and Hogan like puppets, and now, the destruction of the Florence family is entirely your doing." I turned my gaze to Mom and Dad, my expression cold and resolute as I declared, "I never wanted to compete with Emily for anything. I don't care at all about the Florence family's wealth. From now on, we have no relationship whatsoever." After saying that, I took Kevin by the hand and turned to leave. Behind me, Emily's voice was filled with rage. "Ethel, you damn bitch, go to hell." Before the words had even finished, she suddenly rushed forward and pushed me, shoving me into the busy street filled with traffic. My body had no time to react, and I closed my eyes in despair. However, at that very moment, a tremendous force suddenly pushed me aside. Staggering a few steps, I opened my eyes in shock and saw, in the middle of the road, Hogan lying there covered in blood. His body was motionless, but his eyes were fixed tightly on me, his mouth repeatedly murmuring, "Ethel. Ethel." Emily panicked at the sight and immediately took off running. My parents, equally frantic, hurried after her. An ambulance soon arrived and rushed Hogan to the hospital for emergency treatment. 3 days later, Hogan woke up. When he saw me, a flicker of surprise flashed in his eyes. And then they reddened. "Ethel, you're still alive. That's great." I never expected to reunite with Hogan under such circumstances. After the doctor finished rounds, he told me that Hogan wasn't seriously injured. "Ethel, how have you been during this time?" Hogan spoke weakly, his voice slow and frail. He quickly glanced at the pottery class advertisement lanyard hanging around my neck. Looking into his reddened eyes, my heart was filled with mixed emotions, and I replied softly, "Yes, I'm doing well." He looked at me pitifully, his voice trembling with a hint of tears. "But I haven't been well since your accident. I haven't had a single good night's sleep. I keep dreaming about the day you got hurt." I felt a bit helpless, my tone tinged with sarcasm. "Hogan, what do you mean by that? Haven't you always loved Emily? You married me only for Emily's sake. You're the one who had gangsters break my arm and had people smash my foot. Shouldn't you be happy that I'm gone? After all these years of friendship, for Emily's sake, you could bring yourself to harm me." Now who are you putting on this pitiful act for? Hogan shook his head vigorously, his eyes filled with urgency. No, Ethel, that's not how it was. I only told them to teach you a lesson, just for show. I truly didn't know they would actually break your arm. And I didn't know Emily deliberately had someone throw bricks to injure your foot. After you disappeared, I went to your school several times looking for you. It was only then that the teachers told me about all the suffering you've endured. His voice trembled slightly, his eyes filled with guilt. I gently pulled his hand away, my tone indifferent. What's the point of saying all this now? Hogan urgently grabbed my hand, his voice choked with tears. No, it does matter. When I heard you were buried at the school construction site, my heart almost stopped. I wished I could have died with you, in that moment. I suddenly realized that it's you I truly love. His voice trembled, tears streaming down his pale face. Everything that happened before was my fault. You can hit me, scold me, do whatever you want, just give me a chance to make it up to you. Okay. I pulled my hand free, my tone resolute. It's too late, Hogan. I've already fallen in love with someone else. His eyes instantly flashed with shock, and he shook his head in disbelief. No, how could it be? How could you possibly love someone else, Ethel? Are you deliberately lying to me? However, soon a trace of relief appeared on his face again, as if grasping at the last shred of hope. I know, you're just too angry with me and said that on purpose. Right, I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. Let's start over, okay? I'll change. I will definitely change. Looking at his fragile and humble appearance, I felt not a single ripple in my heart. Take good care of your injuries. I'm leaving. Behind me, Hogan let out a barely audible sob. His voice was filled with sorrow and regret, drifting in the wind, sounding especially mournful. Unexpectedly, Hogan hadn't given up. A few days later, he appeared at the studio door. His eyes were fixed intently on me, as if afraid I might vanish the next second. Come in and sit for a while, I said to him. His eyes instantly lit up, and he carefully stepped inside, taking the initiative to start a conversation. Ethel, you always liked these things before. I never expected you to open a studio now. I responded indifferently. Yeah, before, in order to gain my parents' approval, I worked day and night at the company. It was too exhausting. Now, I don't care about their opinions anymore. I just want to do things that make me happy. He was silent for a moment before speaking slowly. All your things at home are still there, Ethel. Come back home with me. Okay, let's start over. His eyes were full of anticipation. We've known each other for so many years. Our lives have long been marked by traces of each other that can't be erased. I can't live without you, Ethel. Forgive me, please. At that moment, someone tapped on the windowpane outside. I looked up and saw Kevin holding a large bag of snacks, smiling at me as he said, I'm going to pick up Flora from school. Since you have a guest, I won't come in. I returned a gentle smile to him. Hogan's face instantly turned pale, and he spoke urgently. Ethel, is it because of him that you don't want to reconcile with me? Whatever he can give you, I can give you all of it. If you like a carefree life, we can move to a place with beautiful scenery and live freely. I forced a smile, but my tone was firm and calm. Sorry, Hogan, our marriage was filled with lies and schemes from the very beginning, which is why it ultimately fell apart. Now, times have changed. And I no longer love you. If you still cherish even a little of the affection we once had, then from now on, don't come looking for me anymore. Let's preserve some dignity. Hogan's face instantly fell, his lips trembled slightly, and in the end, he buried his head deeply in his arms, his shoulders shaking gently. After that, Hogan never came again, but he sent many master-level pottery pieces through others. The next time I heard news of him, I learned he had already become a monk at JY Mountain. A few months later, I received a call from an unknown number. Hello, your parents are living under the overpass. They got injured in a fight with someone. Could you please come here? I rushed over to find out what had happened. It turned out that Emily, having lost her status as a wealthy heiress, had become completely disheartened and spent her days drinking at the bar. It was there that she happened to see Jonas passionately kissing his new lover. She remembered how Jonas had embezzled all of Florence's family's assets and, overwhelmed with rage, lost her composure. She grabbed a fruit knife from the counter and charged at Jonas, but in the chaos, she accidentally stabbed the foreign model standing beside him. The female model collapsed on the spot and died instantly. Emily was consequently arrested, sent to prison, and sentenced to death. When my parents learned of Emily's death, they nearly had a mental breakdown and began wandering the streets all day long. I sent them to a nursing home and paid for 50 years in advance. This is probably the last thing I can do for them. From now on, the Florence family has nothing more to do with me. On the day Kevin and I got married, The director of the orphanage and many old friends came to attend. Everyone sat together, drinking beer, singing songs, reminiscing about childhood fun, and cheering for our happy life. After marriage, Kevin and I started a ceramic company together. With exquisite craftsmanship and unique designs, our products quickly entered the international market, selling as far as Europe, and our business flourished. 3 years later, with a big belly, I personally handed a 20 million donation check to the dean. The dean was so excited he almost knelt down to thank me. Holding Kevin's hand, my heart was filled with warmth and gratitude. Ahead of us lay a sunlit path of happiness, with a future brimming with joy and delight.